Y'all give it up for your pastor this morning, Pastor Ricky Morris and Miss Jenny. They are first class. They are first class people, and I know you know that, but they are. They were my wife Brittany's youth pastors. Every time Brittany talks about her time in the youth and her youth pastors, she talks about Pastor Ricky and Miss Jenny and the impact they made on her life. And she always cries when she talks about them. And they made incredible impact on her. And little did they know they were helping my future by pouring in to her during those years. And so there's a big connection there with me and Pastor Ricky. Brittany has always compared my youth pastoring to Pastor Ricky, and I say this, when I was youth pastoring, she would say, well, you did a good job of that, but when Pastor Ricky did it, it was a little bit better, or you did a pretty good job of that, but what Pastor Ricky was really organized, and what she was saying is you're not really as good as Pastor Ricky, so I've always had to live in your shadow, Pastor Ricky, and so but I'm thankful for the man of God. Today's Speed of Light Sunday. It's also Pastor Appreciation Month, and he didn't tell me to say this. And I said this in the first service, and I might not get to come back because I'm saying this. You need to bless your pastor any chance you get, not just during Pastor Appreciation Month, the whole year. And I believe pouring into the one that's pouring into you. There's nothing like being a pastor, and getting the call at 2 o'clock in the morning you had to go to the hospital. It's not a regular job. It carries a lot of weight, with it. And so I'm thankful for our pastors, but I'm really thankful for Pastor Ricky and Miss Jenny because they're a father and a mother. That's what they are. And so one more time, can you give it up for the father and the mother of the house? Today is Speed the Light Sunday, and we're gonna receive an offering here at the end. Pastor Ricky's going to receive this, but these funds, listen, they're not for us. They're not for our youth department to keep. They're for our youth department to send, okay? And I traveled and lived the life of a missionary for 5.5 years with Youth Alive. I was a U.S. missionary. And how many know we need missionaries here in the United States? But I'm talking about people that are around the world who are going to places where if they don't have a vehicle, like they can't make it. I think about our missionaries like Bobby Clayton, who has to literally take their vehicle and drive 3 hours through jungle to get to places to minister. I want you to think about that. People making tremendous sacrifice to take their families and go across the world away from everybody else to do what they're called to do. That's a big deal. And so we have an opportunity. We get to give to that. We get to help carry the gospel around the world. How many know your dollar can go where your feet will never touch? And life can be changed because of it. And so I'm excited about Speed the Light, what we're doing with our missionaries. But before we go on any further about the message this morning, because we are talking about sacrifice today, I want to show you a picture of something that's happened in my life. This is our third baby boy who was born a week ago Thursday. And his name is Hayes Carter Till. And so I'm just going to tell you right now, we've had us a week around our house. And he's our third boy, all right? And I'm just going to tell you, I might not have a house left by the end of it. But he is just he's been such a blessing to us in the short time he's been here with us. I'm thankful for my baby boy today. And his name is Hayes Carter, and we like the name Hayes, and you like the name Carter. I really didn't know what any of it meant, but you like the way they sound together, and you start looking up names, and the name Hayes is connected with the word fire. You can dig and find that it's related to that word, and the name Carter, literally means cart man or somebody that pushes a cart. And I was in the hospital holding him the other day when he was born. And I felt the Lord say, he's going to carry the fire. And I'm just thankful for my little world changer today. And so I just wanted to show y'all what's going on in my life. Brittany's at home recovering from a C-section. And so she sends her love this morning. But can we get into the Word today? Can I tell you that on this journey, and it is a journey, the relationship that you form with the Lord. Listen, coming to the altar and saying the prayer, that's not the end of it. That's just the beginning of it. That's the launching point to an incredible journey. And I want to encourage you and tell you this today. He wants to journey with you. He don't want you to go alone. He's with you every step of the way. And on the journey, here's what He wants. He wants to draw close to you. Can I tell you today that we serve a Father? I don't know where your theology is at on this, but I believe this. When I read my word, what I read about is a God who loves us, is a Father who loves us, who wants to give His kids good things. He wants to give you good things. Can I tell you that it's never been in the plans for Him to make you go without? He don't want you to go without. He wants to give you good things. So I need you to hear me this morning, because a lot of times in church we kind of act like it's the opposite. He wants to take you to another level. He wants you to level up. And I'm going to tell you today, I don't know about you, I want to go to another level with Him. Before you can level up, you got to pass the test sometimes. And His Word said, He will test you. Have you ever been in school and you had to take a test? You can't go to the next level. You can't get bumped up or promoted to the next grade until you have passed the series of tests that it takes to get there. He's going to test you. That means He's going to challenge you at times. He's going to tell you and ask you to do things that maybe you're not comfortable with, or maybe or you think is out of your reach. He'll do that a lot. He'll test you. There's certain things that you got to do to show the world that He's the one you belong to. I remember when I walked into the church over in Hendersonville, I walked in on a Sunday morning and I saw a girl on the praise team I had never seen before. And she caught my eye. And how many of you know where you were at when your spouse caught your eye? You probably remember the place, don't you? Let me ask you this. Do you remember the place? Do you remember where you were when the Father caught your eye? I bet you could probably tell me that. But I walked in and I saw her on the praise team and I thought, I like her, right? And so I asked my brother-in-law who was going to church today, I said, who's that? And he said, why are you asking? I said, well, I'm just asking. He said, well, that's the pastor's daughter. And I said, well, maybe I need to stay away from her, right? All right? No offense, Mackenzie and Riley, this morning, right? That led to a period of time. The youth pastor that was there transitioned out. They needed somebody to oversee the youth ministry for the summer, and I had been a youth pastor for a short stint before that, so I got an opportunity to lead the youth ministry over the summer while they found somebody else. And I'll never forget, Brittany, she came home from college that summer, and she helped out back there in that youth group, and the relationship started to form a little bit. And Brian Wright was around for some of this, and the relationship started forming, and it became hey, I like you, to finally we worked up enough courage to talk to the ones, not directly, but people around us, to say, hey, does she like me, or does he like me, you know? And I'll never forget, a mutual friend came to me and said, Brittany wants to know if you like her. We were immature, wasn't we? And I said, I don't know, does she like me? Well, I don't know. And won't you give me her number? And that led to text messaging. That led to the I like you. Talking process started. She was back at college at this point. For a month, we talked on the phone for hours. The relationship was furthering, right? The I like you turned into the I love you. We went further in the relationship. She came home. We went on our first official date, even though we were already Facebook official. We went to Cheesecake Factory. How many know what a Cheesecake Factory is? She got the Caesar salad. I got the Alfredo, right? She didn't eat her food. I had it in my beard, right? That's how the date went. We were furthering the relationship. And somebody said, where are you going with this? I'm going somewhere this morning. Just follow me for a second. The I love you and the dating and the spending time together, that led to finding ourselves walking around at jewelry stores at the mall. looking at rings. Y'all know where I'm going with this. And at this point, I'm traveling the country playing drums, and that season came to an end, and I realized something, that she was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, but before that thing could be made official, there was a series of tests that I had to pass first. I came off the road, and I realized that I was going to have to go get me a real job if I wanted to further this thing. And a lot of you don't know this, but I went and worked for the city of Hendersonville, and I cut grass, and I picked up trash. I poured concrete. Some of you don't know that about me, but I would go and I would blister my hands trying to work, right? Because I was preparing to make something official in my life. I'll never forget, I went down to Jared. I went to Jared, right? That's where you're supposed to go. And I looked into the case, and I found the ring that I knew she liked. And so I remember going in there and telling them to pull it out of the window, and me looking at it, and them giving me the price that it was going to cost. Sometimes you got to pay the price, don't you? And I thought, okay, well, I don't have the money to pay for that. And they said, that's fine. You can make payments. Boy, they're good at that, ain't they, right? And so I made payments. And every week when I got my paycheck, I would go down there to Jared, and I would put some money down to go towards that ring. And then something really cool happened. I got a thing called a tax return. And it was just enough to pay that ring off. And I'll never forget going down there to that Jared and making that final payment on that ring. And when I made that final payment, here's what happened. The thing I had been looking at, all of a sudden, I owned. And they handed it to me. I'll never forget going out to the parking lot and opening up that box and seeing that ring, thinking, man, wow, I got it. And so I'm on the way home, and this is on like a Saturday, and then that Tuesday rolls around, and I'm thinking about proposing to Brittany on that Friday night, and then I realized something. There was another test I was going to have to take. I hadn't talked to her father yet about it. And I'll never forget, I was over at their house after work one day, and Brittany worked at a David's Bridal at night and during that time, and I would go over there until she went to work, and I was over there in my work clothes, and I fell asleep on the couch talking to her and her mom, and I woke up. Brittany had already gone to work, and not only was her mom still there, but all of a sudden I realized her dad had gotten home from the office, and he's sitting in the chair, and he's looking at me with a little bit of disgust on his face, And I wake up, and I sit up, and I think, well, now's as good a time as any. I got to pass this test. And I said, hey, Pastor, let me talk to you for a second. I said, I love Brittany. I said, I'm thinking about asking her to marry me, but I need to get your permission first. And he said, well, when were you planning on doing it? And I said, I don't know, Friday night. And he said, well, it'd be okay if you waited a little bit. And I said, well, no, I've already got the ring, And all of a sudden I was interrupted because Brittany's mom said, oh, David, would you just shut up? And he said, you know what, I don't care. And I got a halfway yes, didn't I? And I passed the test. I had the permission. And so then I'm on the way home, and I think, all right, well, how am I going to do it? Maybe I should take her to a nice restaurant. And so I called the Palm down in Nashville. And you say, where are you going with this? I promise you I'm going to bring this home here in just a little bit. I called the Palm, and I asked them, I said, hey, I need a reservation for Friday night because I'm going to propose to my girlfriend. And they said, okay, we'll get it set up. We'll get you the best booth in the restaurant. We'll get you the best waiter in the restaurant. I'm preparing to make this thing official, right? I said, great. They said, well, how are you going to do it? I said, well, I don't know. Can you help me with that? They said, well, why don't we get the waiter to take your dessert order, and he can bring it out on a dessert platter, and he can pull the lid off. That sounds cheesy, but that's how we did it, right? I said, that sounds great. They got it all prepared. And then I realized something. I spent all my money buying that ring last weekend. How am I going to pay for the meal? Y'all know where I'm going with this, right? Stuff costs money, especially these days, right? How am I going to pay for that meal? Then I started thinking about things I could sell. See, before I could make this thing official, I had to sell out to some things. I found the only thing that I had of any value, and it was a softball bat that I had, because I was a washed-up baseball player. This is 150 pounds ago, by the way, right? And I was playing competitive softball on the weekends. How many know what I'm talking about? 9, 10 ball games on Saturday playing a woman's game, right? That's what I was doing, right? I had a bat that I had paid a lot of money for. It was a highly sought-after bat. It was worth a lot of money. They were hard to find. And that's what I had of some value. And I thought, well, I could sell that. So I went to somebody I worked with that played ball, and he had a mutual friend, and I met with this mutual friend on Friday afternoon, the night I was going to make this thing official. How many know the Lord knew what I needed, right? And the guy knew that I had to get rid of it. He knew I needed the money. So he shortchanged me on the bat. I got bare minimum for it. But you know, I got what I needed to make it official. You know what else I did in that moment? When I let go of that bat, what I was doing was I was letting go of my immaturity to make this thing official. And see, I know you say you love the Lord, you go to church, but you know what? In your daily life, do people know it? Have you publicly made this thing official yet? Have you made this thing official with your finances and how you spend them? I wanted the whole world to know that I belong to her. I let go of my immaturity. Some of you got to let go of your immaturity in here today. That's an encouraging challenge to you. I got the money for the meal, and I drove down to Nashville with Brittany that night. I'll never forget. We get to the restaurant. They put us in a booth. We order. We eat dinner. The waiter, had an accent. His name was Antoine. It was like something out of a movie. And he said, "Okay, are y'all having a good time?" Yeah. "Can I interest you in dessert?" And he looked at me, and I said, "Yeah, I'd love some dessert. What you got?" And he said, "What about the cheesecake?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I love cheesecake, And Brittany said, "I really don't want no dessert." I said, "Oh, we're getting dessert, right?" "Oh, we're getting dessert." And they go, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I see them wheeling the dessert out on a table, and it dawned on me. I was in a booth in front of a lot of people in the restaurant. I was going to have to get out of the booth and get down on one knee. Can I tell y'all something? I don't have the body type to be shimmying in and out of a booth, and I certainly don't have the body type to be getting down on one knee in front of the whole restaurant. And I see it, and they bring the platter out, and I'm sitting there, and I'm sort of panicked, because I got one more test I got to take here, Pastor Ricky. They put the dessert down, and there's the dome, and they pull the dome off, and there it is, the ring. And the light hit it. And I thought, golly, look at the ring. I did that, And I see Brittany's face, and she gasped. Tears fill her eyes. I look over in the restaurant, and there's another couple, an older couple, and the wife is grabbing the shoulder of her husband, going, "Oh, honey, look at him, All eyes were on me in that restaurant. And here it goes. I'm shimmying out of the booth, and I get down on the knee, and I'm talking about snap, crackle, and pop. Once I get something down, it's hard for me to get it back up like that. But I got down on the knee, and I got the ring, and I took her by the hand, and I asked the question. And what I was asking her was, do you want to make this thing official? And y'all saw Hayes, so y'all know the answer. Can I tell you something? And all the preparation and all the stress and all the work and all the worry and all the sacrifice to make that thing official, do you know something? The whole time I knew what the answer would be. Can I tell you something? When we sacrifice, when we risk, we're not risking anything at all with the Father. All we're doing is going to another level with Him. All we're doing is making the relationship more official. Can I tell you, He's already done His part. He sent His Son because He wanted to make it official with you. Now it's your turn to do your part on it. There's certain sacrifice that you got to make on the journey. But can I tell you that with the Father, the answer is always what you need. He has your best interest in mind today. Genesis 22. Genesis 22, we're going to talk about the sacrifice of Isaac. Genesis 22, verse 1, right here. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham, he rose early in the morning. He saddled his donkey, and he took 2 of his young men with him and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering. And he arose and he went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar. And then Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you. Then Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and he laid it on Isaac his son. And he took in his hand the fire and the knife. And so they went both of them together. And Isaac said to his father, Abraham, My father. He said, Here I am, my son. He said, Behold the fire and the wood. But where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they went both of them together. And when they came to the place of which God had told him, Abraham built the altar there and laid the wood in order. And he bound Isaac his son, and he laid him on the altar on top of the wood. And then Abraham reached out his hand, and he took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, and seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram, caught in the thicket by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called the name of that place, The Lord will provide. As it is said to this day, on the mount of the Lord, it shall be provided. What a powerful story here. What a powerful story. See, Abraham, and I'm telling you right now, I want an Abraham faith. See, Abraham had journeyed with the Lord so well that when the test was given, and that's what this was, it was a test. Abraham had the faith enough to make the preparation to go to the next level in the relationship with the Lord. Just as I prepared for the ring, just as I worked, that was me gathering the sticks and saddling the donkey, Pastor Ricky. I was making the preparations to make the thing official. Abraham, he takes the one that he had babied, the one that he had waited for. And he was willing to give up the thing that he had babied if it meant going to another level in the relationship with the one he loved. Can you imagine that kind of faith? That's called doing whatever it takes to get closer to him. And can I tell you something? In order for a sacrifice to take place, that means that something has to die. And there's some of you in here, you want to go to the next level in your faith. You want to go to your next level in the relationship with him. But I'm telling you right now, before that can happen, something on the inside of you is going to have to die. Greed's going to have to die. Immature thinking is going to have to die. I know better attitude, that's going to have to die in order for you to go to the next level. I'm telling you today, I'm encouraging you with a challenge. Sacrifices have to be made. Can you imagine taking the thing that you prayed for and asked for, the thing that you babied, and rising early and preparing to kill it? That's an unbelievable faith. Can you imagine being Isaac as you walk with your father? Can you imagine what that would have been like, walking up that mountain? You know the part about this story that I love? Is when Abraham told the others to wait there. And he said, me and the boy, we're going to go, and we're going to go on that mountain, we're going to worship. And he said, me and him's going to come back to you. Which meant he didn't know how, but he just knew he would, right? He knew that God would provide, just like he always did. An Abraham faith. And he goes, and the ram appears. Can you imagine the perspective and the next level faith that was had as they walked back down to that mountain to the others? Can you imagine the story they had to tell? Not just for Abraham, but for Isaac. My father did what it would take for him. I'll never forget, for some of you, this church, you know this, but they supported me for years with Youth Alive, and I traveled as a Youth Alive missionary, raising funds, making awareness, doing ministry in schools, and so I lived that missions life. And when I accepted that assignment, that call, when I left to go do that, I left a paycheck. Now, it wasn't a very big paycheck, but it was all I had. I walked away from a steady paycheck to go and raise funds. And I'm just going to tell you, when you see on social media somebody's in a gymnasium in front of kids, or you're in an event, you're speaking in front of thousands of kids, it looks good. Everybody's like, he's having fun, and I was having a lot of fun. But what they don't see is when you pull up your missions account for the first time and it says 0. And it's up to you to get the funds in that account. That was a tremendous sacrifice. They don't see the 2 or 3 months you go without a paycheck. Most people can't go a week without one. Can you imagine me as a young man with a child there going 2 or 3 months without a paycheck? It was a sacrifice. And I'm not saying that to toot my horn. I'm just telling you, these missionaries, they're making sacrifices. But if it meant living with the Lord the way I should, if it meant walking in my purpose and my calling, if it meant going to the next level with Him, it was worth it to me. It was worth the sacrifice. I'm better for it today. Fast forward, I'm 5.5 years into this thing. I'm fully funded, and then some, and then some. I had people I didn't even have to make phone calls. They were calling me, wanting to give to me. I had people calling me, hey, I felt led to give you $10,000 today. I felt led to give you $12,000 today. I had monthly donors. Some of them were giving up to $2,000 monthly into that missions account. We were rolling. That last year, I had led over 400 people to the Lord personally. We had campus clubs popping up. The thing that I had babied had legs up underneath it, was moving the way it should. And I'll never forget, I got out of the shower one morning and I felt the Lord. I felt the Lord in my spirit. I don't know how to describe it, but that still small voice, and this is what I heard. You need to go. You need to go away. I don't know if you've ever heard anything like that. I thought, go away, go where? You need to leave where you're at, and you need to go for a little bit. I didn't know what that meant. But that Friday rolls around, and I get a call from another organization similar to what I was doing. They had offered me a job several times, and they made me an offer that I could not say no to. I had already heard the Lord say, go for a little while. I had worked in TYM with Pastor Jeremy for almost a decade. I was passionate about it. I slept on an air mattress out there at the camp for years that was half deflated for the call to fulfill my purpose, to go the next level with the Lord. I had babied this thing, and now I had to give it up. And I'll never forget talking with Pastor Jeremy about it. He encouraged me. And he said, the Lord told you to do that. I don't want you to go, but if he told you to do it, that's what you got to do, Brooks. I remember penning out the letter saying I was leaving. I remember preaching at the other camp with the new organization and it being an incredible services. And I remember going back to my little room, and I remember the people that I had preached to, they said, that's the best camp service we've ever seen out here. Everything looked great, but I'm going to tell you what I was doing on the inside. I felt like I had died. I was grieving. And I sat there in that room at that camp. It wasn't an air mattress. It was a nice plush bed. I had my own bathroom in that room. It wasn't the half-deflated air mattress. But I began to weep because it was official. I felt like I had killed the thing I had babied. And in that moment, I told the Lord, Lord, I've done what you've asked me to do. But my heart longs to go back to TYM. And when you're ready, I'm ready. I had made the sacrifice. And I'll never forget, a few weeks later, Pastor Jeremy calls me. And I said, man, why are you calling? Shouldn't you be at camp? And he said, well, I wasn't feeling well, and I went to the doctor, and they said, I've got COVID. I said, oh, no. I said, well, what's going on? He said, well, I need somebody to run camp tonight. And he said, I don't want anybody else to run it but you. Can you run service? And I thought, man, I'm going to get a piece of camp this summer. I said, yeah, I could do it. And he said, I need you to run it tomorrow night too. And I'll never forget, I went out to the camp that Thursday night, and I walked into that gym, and I'm going to tell you, the smells at camp, they're unbelievable. I went in and I could smell the gym, you know. It was hot. My heart leapt as soon as I walked in because I realized something. I was home. Led service and was so thankful that the Lord let me sort of have that closure, you know. And the next night, I'm on my way to camp, and I've drove to that campground, feels like thousands of times, and I go the normal route, and all of a sudden something happened. I saw a sign that said detour. And I went the detour route, and then another sign, detour this way, and at this point, I'm having to turn my GPS on. And at this point, I ran out of service, and my GPS was no good anymore. And all of a sudden, something happened. I found myself lost. Everybody ever been lost before? Service was supposed to start at 7. At 7:15, I found myself in Springfield, Tennessee. And my phone rings, and it's Heather Wallace. She's leading worship, and she said, hey, where are you? And I said, Heather, I'm lost. And she said, we can't start without you. I said, well, I don't know what to do. I'm lost, and I don't know how to get back. She said, we'll wait. We'll stall. I just turned my vehicle in the direction I thought camp was, and I was on my way, and I was praying to the Lord, Lord, help me get back to this campground. Help me get back here. And Mackenzie, if you want to come and play softly, you can. I had only been to that campground one way, and that was where you come in and you turn left into it. But I found myself coming up on the campground in a different way. I saw the game shed to my right. The entrance was coming up on my right. I had never turned in from the right side. And when I saw the sign of Camp Jackson, I turned in and I said, oh, Lord, you got me here. And I felt the Lord say this in that moment. I'm bringing you back. But I'm bringing you back different than what you were before. I'm bringing you back with a greater appreciation for what you had. I'm bringing you back stronger than what you were before. I'm bringing you back with better eyes to see. With a new praise. With a new worship in your heart. See, it was never His intent to take the thing away that I had, baby. It was always His intent to give it back to me better than what it was before. When we sacrifice, we go to another level in the relationship with Him. We're better for it, but not only that, His name is known more. Some of you need to make this thing official. You got to buy into it. You got to let the world know. See, talk is good, but actions are what make this thing go like it needs to. Can you imagine Abraham and Isaac as they walked back down after the Lord had provided? Isaac probably never forgot it, did he? The Lord always provides. It shall be provided. Can you bow your heads and close your eyes? You know that bat that I sold a couple years ago at Christmas? Brittany brought me a gift into the living room and she handed it to me, and I opened it up. It was a glass box, and inside that glass box was that bat I had sold. She had tracked it down. It sits on display in my bonus room in my house as a sign. That His desire is not to take away. His desire is to give. He's a good father who loves His sons and daughters. He's a good father that has your best interest in mind today. He just wants to go further in the relationship with you. The tests have got to be completed for that to happen. Not just in your giving of the offering today, but in your everyday life, at your workplace, at your school. Do they know who you belong to? With the way you treat people. Do they know who you belong to? When we sacrifice, we get Him. He's the prize today. He's the prize today. Whatever it takes faith, that's what I want today. An Abraham faith to see the impossible. That's what I want today. I want to go to the mountaintop today with Him. I want to experience Him in a new way. I want Him to blow my mind today. That's what I want. If you would, if you're ready to go to the next level with Him, could you just stand in here today? And if you're physically able, could you just lift your hands to heaven? And just in your own way, can you just begin to talk to Him and just say, Father, whatever it takes, whatever the sacrifice, all I want is You, Father. All I want is to know you more. He's bringing you back, but he's bringing you back different. You're going back home today.